So it seems the art community on Twitter has finally had it with Adobe, and artists on Twitter are calling Adobe out for stealing work from artists and selling them on their platform, further ripping artists off who already are having a bad time since the intervention of AI across multiple platforms. Artists are really calling them out on Twitter and are on the verge of boycotting Adobe and a number of their products for good. Hey, how's it going and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the Adobe situation that has been going on Twitter for the past couple of weeks. Or is it X now? I guess I'm not supposed to call it Twitter anymore. It sounds so silly. Does anyone even call it X? Hey guys, follow me on X. It just sounded like a promotion for a softcore porn website. I'm sorry. Anyway, if you're new to this channel and love listening to art commentary style videos and videos talking about the art community and things that happen around it, please subscribe to the channel and join the Discord server using the link in the description. So Adobe released their new generative AI, which is this new groundbreaking technology and supposedly the future of Creative Cloud that apparently enhances the creative process, gives creators practical advantages, sets the standard for responsibility, and so much more. Who asked? Aren't you supposed to be learning from Procreate and adopting similar ideologies that cater for artists and then create a system that supports artists instead of finding numerous ways to maneuver them out of business while slowly trying to exploit them in the process? Breathe, Mohammed, breathe. Zen. While numerous artists called Adobe out over their art being used unethically in their new program after they claimed it was only going to pull images from the Adobe stock database to be used for training the AI. But it turned out that most of the images used were actually taken from artists without their permission prior to the artists finding out their names were still included in the dataset of the AI. Adobe, however, countered these claims, responding that they intended to compensate the artists if their work was used, and surprisingly enough, using creators' images complied with Adobe Stock's terms of service, so filing a lawsuit against Adobe for copyright infringement was just going to be impossible. It just seems like artists are fighting a lose-lose battle no matter how hard we try. Boom, you just discovered a new way to make commissions and pay for your rent? Well, here comes a soulless AI that can literally do the same thing in less time than you. Well, at least not technically the same thing since they still struggle with hands at this point, but soon enough, that will be the reality of literally every artist. This person, who is seemingly frustrated with the entire situation as well, said, "Artists can't have a single day with some peace. At first, we had a lot of problems with plagiarism, and then came the NFT art idea, and now AI. I don't have enough mental health to be an artist anymore." Isn't it funny how all of these problems just came one after the other, and then the whole NFT thing just died out faster than any trend I have ever seen? And all those people who had apes and goats and were parading them around like trophies or essential commodities, now they can't even buy anything tangible with them without looking like a homeless person. This person also said, "It's interesting how Adobe made this whole thing about how they got every artist express permission and every artist gets royalties back, only for every artist to say the same thing about not knowing they were scrapped and never given consent. So what's up, Adobe?" At this point, it's getting obvious that anyone who says they have artist permission to use their work and then they're going to compensate them fairly is clearly lying and is just trying to manipulate them into believing they have the best interest for them at heart when they're really just looking for the slightest opportunity to exploit them. A lot of artists were not pleased with this at all because it just seemed like every platform and program all of a sudden turned their backs on artists that single-handedly carried them on their backs for years to where they are now. We saw a similar situation with DeviantArt, and now everyone and their grandma is just avoiding DeviantArt like a plague after they pulled artists' work and used it to train their AI and then force artists to have to go through an entire process of manually opting out of each image if they wanted to have their entire portfolio excluded. Many artists on Twitter started making threads showing how many other artists' work were available on the Adobe stock marketplace and were all on sale, with artists like Beeple, Ross Draws, and Greg Rutkowski having hundreds of hits when their names were used as a search query on the platform. Even Artgem was not spared from this atrocity. Loish had to make a tweet at Adobe directly asking why her name was showing up as a search query on Adobe stock without her permission, and then Adobe replied saying, "Hi there. Thanks for letting us know about this. It goes against our generative AI content policy. We've escalated this with our team to ensure it's addressed, which in the first instance is nice. At least they're responding and addressing the complaints, because who would have guessed? It's Loish, as in the Loish, and not just some poor little arty who has an itsy bitsy following and is still finding their way in their art career, so they don't have to reply to them because they're irrelevant. How about the dozens of other artists who are in the same case? Maybe just, stop allowing AI generated images on Adobe stock. You know just as much as all of us that this is art theft. This is on you. It doesn't matter that it is AI or that it's against your policy. You, Adobe, are selling images using artist names as tags and titles. You are doing this. You are taking money from art buyers. You are promising art buyers that this is trustworthy. Of course, Adobe responds without missing a beat when one of the biggest names in the online art community says something. I hope this is the same attitude they have with smaller creators. That's really like wishing on a falling star. You never can count on it to really ever happen. Many artists also mentioned that they had kept on seeing this happening across their timeline for some reason, and we're wondering why Adobe stock was filled with AI generated images instead of actual stock photos, which kind of makes sense, right? You'd expect a platform that prides itself in having a vast database of stock photos for artists and other creators to use in their work to actually be filled with stock photos from actual photographers, since it also happens to be a paid platform and a means for people to make money from their work. But instead, it's just a ton of AI images, and then you still get charged for using them like actual stock photos. Make it make sense, please. I guess someone in their headquarters was trying to take the cheaper route and forgot they will probably be stepping on a lot of toes doing that. I was on Reddit and saw this comment that totally pissed me off, and I'm really sorry for doing this to you, but I can't be the only person that has to suffer. Who cares about those people complaining? I hope they don't make any money and give up. I'll never pay for any art ever again. I will gladly pay money to AI to create it for me. The more people complaining like this makes me continue to use AI over people. People are just scammers anyway. Let's just unpack that slowly. People are scammers. That I agree. But praying for artists to not make any money and just completely give up on their art is just pure wickedness from the depth of your heart. Who angered you that bad, my guy? I mean, I understand artists could be complicated and annoying and unreliable at times, but hoping they never make any money and just completely give up something they really love? Nah, that's just wild. The comment had a number of replies, with some other bitter people agreeing with what this person said, and some others tried to argue against it, stating how comparing actual artists and how an AI generates images are two different things. And this made me just realize that people either don't like artists or they just don't understand how this affects artists. And I know all the people advocating AI are going to argue that, saying things like, oh, it speeds up the creative process. You can literally make an image in a matter of seconds without having to know anything about art. But then again, if every one of us just decided to quit making art altogether, whose art is going to be used to train the AI? Since it's clear that these systems require artists to learn from and pull reference from in their data to create art, which is why every single image generated with AI has a resemblance to a particular artist's work or a number of artists' work who were used to train the AI. It's gotten so annoying and increasingly difficult to differentiate work from an actual artist and work that was just created using AI, especially on Twitter or X. That's such a stupid name. I could just be casually scrolling and see a really beautiful drawing or fan art of a Genshin Impact character, and then I'll get so hyped and excited just to check out their account and see more of their art, and then all of a sudden I go on their page and it says something like anime fanart.ai or something stupid like that. And I've also noticed this happen across other social media platforms, and it's so bad that the subreddit r/art decided to ban any artist whose work looked similar to AI generated art, just to be safe and make sure all the art posted in that subreddit was genuinely made by artists. Imagine being so good at art that you get banned because people think your drawing is too perfect that it looks like AI generated art. Well, I can't even imagine that because my drawings look at best average to me on a good day. But I guess it's just one of the things with being an artist. You never get to really appreciate how good you are until you see how far you've come. And that sounded like quite a motivational quote. Anyways, the effects of AI generated art and how it affects artists don't just stop there. Numerous artists are getting laid off and being replaced by AI programs because, well, studios and companies are realizing it's becoming increasingly costly to fund a team of artists working on a show or movie, and in the event the show or movie gets cancelled, they still have to pay artists for the time and effort they put into working on that show, even if it got cancelled all of a sudden and somehow didn't make any money and flopped. So it more or less seems much more cost effective for them to just lay off a bunch of artists and then use AI to finish whatever it is the artists were working on in the beginning. So for someone to just not care about artists and how this entire AI debacle just affects them, it just makes me weak every time I think about it. Well, I'm glad Adobe finally made an update to the situation, saying all of the images that had Lush tagged had been removed from Adobe stock. So yay, I guess, since it seems like a step in the right direction for once, and it finally looks like they're doing the right thing, even though it appears you have to be one of their top artists for you to get a reply or even have your situation acknowledged. But hey, I guess a win is a win, right? Give or take. This response also raised a few more questions from artists that needed answering, since clearly just removing work that had already been created wasn't going to just clear whatever images or names were used to train the AI, and Adobe were not making any statement on that or explaining how all that was going to be handled. Instead, all we were getting was this: FYI, these should be removed from stock now. These all violate our generative AI submission guidelines, but clearly were missed by our moderators. Isn't it the sole purpose of the moderators to scrutinize every image that was going through the entire submission process? Just so situations like this shouldn't happen in the first place. They're making it sound as if they have only one mod who is doing all the work, and then it just so happens that it's too much work for one person to handle. So we should all just please accept the little error and treat it as a minor inconvenience. FYI, this is Adobe we're talking about, a multi-million-dollar company that still makes its users pay monthly for subscription if they want to use any of their products. So at least they should be able to hire a decent amount of moderators, so this kind of thing should not be happening in the first place. Just saying, maybe, just maybe, the whole generative art practice should be scrapped in support of the real artists your company has been making money off of for decades. The way your moderation is clearly not working shows how unfit for purpose the whole system is. Mods missing a couple will be much more believable. Hundreds, if not thousands of these missed things is just ignorance. I don't buy a single word in that statement. It's just clear that y'all don't care about artists. So Adobe thought they could get away with a dirty data set and just make it so artists had to opt out long after the damage is done? Can you even guarantee their artistic influence is removed once it was trained? Because now those influenced images are part of the set. I guess Mike has a lot of explaining to do in his spare time. Well, it's been some weeks now, and as Mike said, the internal team are still working on getting all the images removed from stock, so I believe they're on top of this situation. But it seems most of them are still up, and it appears the mods are doing a job, because I'm not so sure they're doing their job pretty well, but they're doing a job certainly. More artists are still calling out Adobe after they discover their name is somehow included in the tags, and people are gradually trading their Adobe subscriptions for a sweet taste of piracy. So I guess we can all just wish Adobe luck in this situation and see what happens. Oh, and wait for Mike and the rest of his moderators. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, share it with a friend so they know the situation with Adobe right now, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. With all that being said, I will see all you pretty penguins in the next video. Bye!